We'll move now directly to new business, which is public input. So welcome everybody here this morning, staff and public. Welcome, Don Tucker. Good to have you here this morning. So any comments, feel free. Use the podium on my left, related to the budget. So use the podium on my left, provide us with your name and address and the pleasure of your views.
Good morning, Your Worship, Council. Welcome to our new CAO. It's nice to have you, and good to see you again to our former CAO. I've got a number of things to go through, and I guess since I'm the only one here, I guess I have some time to do it.
If you give us your name and address, then we'll have it for the minutes.
You bet. My name's Don Tucker. My address is 3006 Gateby Place here in Vernon. I'm bringing you today not just my concerns, but some residents' concerns in regard to the budget that we're looking at today. Looking through, fully support the new website proposal. We definitely need one. Looking at the budgeting, however, it only accounts for website development at a cost of $365K and a subscription cost of $15K per year for the next 5 years. However, I'm not seeing any major upgrades within the next 5 years in that budget, and that seems to me to be a bit unrealistic. When we're looking at staffing, one of the things that I've noted is a lot of times staffing starts being funded from reserves, and then it moves into becoming a budget line item, which means it is funded from taxation. This is something that I've noted is coming again with a new communications position and with a custodial position, and I'm wondering if we actually need the communications position. I've noted that the communications department has started off with one person a number of years ago, and now we're looking to get, I believe, our 4th person in communications. And we're looking at getting somebody in into the area of capital projects. And I'm wondering how much that a person is not actually in that field can actually answer those questions, and do we really actually need that, or should we get another person in that area who can actually answer those questions and can actually do the work? Is this a matter of hiring somebody in that field that then can also answer questions that then adds to the ability to do the work? How many people do we actually need in communications? When we actually added the 2nd person, the reasoning is because when we had emergencies, then they could tag off the other person, and that seemed reasonable, so that one person wasn't working all the time, and now we just seem to be exponentially adding into the communications department. And I'm wondering, what is the reasons for this? And are we actually needing that, or are we needing to actually add people into those departments so that it can actually do the work and answer the questions of people? The Department of Intergovernmental and Protective Services doesn't seem, and granted I'm looking at a layman's perspective here, doesn't seem to need to exist as a management position. Could we not replace this as an executive assistant and save $200K a year? It doesn't seem like anybody reports to that person, so just wondering. In regards to the budget, there are gaps that I've noted, and maybe this can be answered to me for these staff positions, like the comms position and the custodian position. From the reserves, it's not showing the impact in future years. What happens once these positions are funded? How will they continue to be funded? $127K per year quickly cuts into that new infrastructure levy. Also, when looking at the change request of the infrastructure levy, why 0 for every year except 2026? If the levy is applied, it will generate that much revenue every year, and it says right there it will be for 10 years. When we're looking at administration and council's wages, administration is only going up 2.2%, while council will cost us another 4.2%. Don't you think we're paying council too much of an increase when you consider how the general population's pay has risen or not? That's above inflation. I believe it's wrong to tie it to population. Every year council gets more. It's not like your job is getting that much harder with another 500 residents. Council increases, again, are exceeding inflation, and I believe that council's funding formula is costing taxpayers are too much. And I get it. It's not a lot of money in the budget, but every dollar counts right now. CPI in Canada is 2.4%, and you're nearly 2 points higher. In terms of city reserves, I note that we're getting rid of the unexpended balance and we're moving into city reserves. Is there a way that I could be explained how they're going to function in terms of how it's going to be spent, in what way they're going to be allocated if they're in that reserve? Because the concern is, are they going to just end up being unexpended balances in just another form? Would love to know what's happening with the tree bylaw. Where is it in its completion and when is it coming back to council? Just because of the OCP and what's happened, and it's important. I'm going to mention this again because it came up in previous years that I've brought up. Reclaimed water rates, once again, haven't risen since 2013. We're coming up to 2026. That's 10 years since an increase. We should be raising rates here. Also believe when it comes to the Kin Racetrack Park, I don't believe that council should be spending any more money on this beyond what you've already determined, and that should be left at this point until the next council, and the next council has a mandate from residents. I believe that there should be a pause in this. We've already got the Active Living Center and the Cultural Center builds, and I think when we're talking about any more projects or anything else like that, and because anything further than what you've got going on will require a lot of public consultation and those other things, I think all of that should come after the next election. When we're looking at the Active Living Center, I've had a lot of feedback from residents in terms of making sure that the areas in Coldstream are paying for the Active Living Center at the same rate of us, including for both capital and operating costs, just like when we worked on and paid for Caltire Place and Caltire Place North, so that we can ensure equal access to those facilities and programming for all Greater Vernon residents. Sewer is a moneymaker, but apparently only via utility bills paid for by residents. And of course, please ensure that business pays their fair share. Again, people are still upset about that. Again, and also make sure in terms of the reclaimed water irrigation rates that users are paying the operating and capital costs of that system. Irrigation repairs have been paid mostly by residents who will never use that water. They'll never use reclaimed water. So same thing goes for high waste users, make them pay. And once again brought up too, Lakeshore parking lot, it was brought up and it was told that, well, we'll look at it for the next budget. I think we're 4 years later, and nothing's been done. We've had a lot of years where there hasn't even been a lot of snow, and that parking lot could have been open for residents to park in and enjoy that park in the winter really easily without spending a lot of money actually going through and plowing it. And it's a well-used park. If we want our parks to be used even all years round, we should try to provide some access to it. I want to make some notes on the entire capital plan. I've gone through the 2026 capital plan, and I want to start with the obvious. We're spending a lot of money on keeping a lot of infrastructure alive in places it never needed to be in the first place. And unless we change how we grow, this trend is only going to get more expensive. Vernon doesn't just have a cost problem, we have a distance problem. Vernon's infrastructure footprint is way too large for its population. I want to put this into perspective here. We maintain 462 kilometers of sanitary and storm pipe. Kelowna, with 3.5 times our population, has 842 kilometers. Vancouver, with 15 times our population, has 2,136 kilometers. You do the math, and Vernon is maintaining almost twice as much pipe per resident as Kelowna, and over 3 times as much pipe per resident as Vancouver. This is the kind of statistic that should make everyone in this room pause. We're maintaining a big city-sized network with a small city tax base. It's no wonder our capital budget feels like a pressure cooker. The 2026 capital plan is basically an invoice for sprawl. Here's what we're paying for next year alone. $4.23 million for the 43rd Avenue corridor, $830,000 for the 39th Avenue culvert, $780,000 for Kalmalka Lake Road, $840,000 for stormwater asset renewal, $750,000 for drainage improvements, $800,000 for sanitary replacements, $750,000 just to send a robot down our pipes to see what's going wrong. Every one of these projects is important, but they all share the same root cause. We have built miles and miles of infrastructure into places where very few people live. So the cost per resident is huge. It's like we're running a continental breakfast service for houses that are 3 kilometers apart. Stormwater is a financial warning siren. Stormwater isn't driven by population, it's driven by land area. And we've built a lot of land area. That's why we're spending $2.6 million on stormwater fixes this year alone. More culverts, more ditches, more crossings, more failures. Meanwhile, compact neighborhoods in the core rarely need 830,000 creek crossing surgeries. The farther out we build, the more we pay forever. Sprawl infrastructure doesn't just cost more to build, it costs more to maintain, it wears out faster, it fails in more places, and it demands more renewal dollars every single decade. Developers are long gone by then. The province isn't picking up the tab, so the bill goes to Vernon taxpayers indefinitely. We are essentially maintaining Kelowna-sized pipe on a Vernon-sized budget. If we focus new growth where infrastructure already exists, we don't extend pipes, we don't widen roads, we reduce long-term liabilities, transit becomes feasible, stormwater issues shrink, and every tax dollar stretches further. This is not radical, it's basic infrastructure economics. Growing inward is cheaper, smarter, and more resilient than growing outward. We need to spend on quality of life, not endless repair bills. Right now, too much of the capital plan is consumed by keeping old infrastructure alive instead of building the things residents actually want. Safer streets, public spaces, parks, amenities, climate adaptation, housing initiatives. We can't become the city that spends its entire future budget digging up the past. My ask to council is prioritize new growth in existing serviced areas, encourage infill and redevelopment in the core, limit outward expansion until our infrastructure is financially sustainable, recognize that the capital plan is waving a very large, very expensive warning flag. Vernon doesn't have a spending problem. Vernon has a distance problem. We are maintaining far more infrastructure per resident than Kelowna, far more than Vancouver. And that is why our capital budget feels like a treadmill we can't get off. If we want stability, if we want sustainability, if we want to invest in the future, not just fix the past, we have to shift growth back into the core. Okay, thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Don. Council, any questions for Don Tucker? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time.